My beautiful light beings, I have a wonderful guest here. Her name is JJ Brighton. She is a galactic channel code keeper, planetary grid weaver, and ambassador of the Council of Star Mothers and Crystalline Children. I have personally taken several classes from JJ in person in the Hermosa Beach area and as well as online. Welcome, JJ. I'm so excited to have you.
Hi, Dani. Super, super thrilled to be here. And even just reading the templates that I'm holding, it's actually very beautiful to have you witness it and reflect it back to me. So thank you for that wonderful
Yeah,
intro.
of course. And so the first question I like to ask all my guests is what is your strongest clair and how does that present in your life and in your work?
I would say my strongest clair is my claircognizance. It's my knowing. It's funny because I want to say it's my seeing, but I've navigated this world of being a psychic for long enough that I've learned how to sort of articulate how my clairvoyance works. And I think it helps a lot of people when I describe the way I see. A lot of times, the way I see is it comes as a knowing first, and then I paint the picture with my imagination in my mind's eye. So rather than see the color red like I would see in front of me, I hear, sort of feel, but hear the color red or know the color red. And then my mind says, oh, red, like you're knowing red or you're knowing this and that. And so it's kind of an interesting claircognizance to clairvoyance that I move through when I'm tuning in, but it always originates with that claircognizance piece.
That's so important with, understanding your specific cosmic soul language and your channel. And I love that because oftentimes we're like, oh, this is one, way of seeing things or one way of knowing things. And really in the actuality of your like cosmic soul language, it's interwoven. And really understanding that for you, I think
Yes.
is so, so important. And so the first thing I want to talk about is light language because we have not talked about this on this podcast of Magic Exists. So for anyone who is tuning in and new maybe to the galactic energies of the universe, what is light language?
Ooh, yeah, that's a big topic to jump into, but really magical. So I think it fits perfectly, and everybody that is listening will totally vibe with this idea of what light language is. Honestly, light language is a way of soul communication outside of the norms and rules of our typical like English or Spanish or structured languages on our planet that we use as humans. It allows us to convey frequencies outside of those boxes. And oftentimes, those frequencies come from many places, from different light beings, whether it's on our planet as, elemental beings or galactic, like you mentioned, our star families, even angelic. It's actually more akin to like what I would say channeling through music because music is also, although you have notes, like music is very creative in that there aren't so many boxes. Like if you're outside of classical music or like classical composition and you're just free flowing composing music, like today, there's so much of that. It's really doing that, but with your voice. That's what I see it as. And, I'm going to talk mainly about spoken light language, although it comes in written form, hand light language, and body light language, which we know as dance as well.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And when you're saying that it comes through in different ways, like written, dance, and spoken light language, I know I went to a couple of your in-person circles, which were so beautiful about like connecting to those multidimensional beings to help support us along our journey. And so for me, I have only tapped into it a little bit more recently, and I've definitely been using it to like transmute. I feel like for me, it's like a master transmutative energy that either helps like heal or just transmute energy that's coming through me. When I channel information, it's like of the lighter frequency. And so when it's coming into like my dense body for me to like translate or, express with my voice, often light language helps me like decom or compress it maybe, or like funnel it, I think, in a way that helps me express it more fluidly. Um, can you kind of expand on that a little bit or if that resonates?
Yes, it 100% resonates. So what you just asked me was like the what what is light language. We're now going to talk about with this like little what you mentioned, how like how to use it, what like how it's used. And that's a perfect example. I think one of the first ways that it's smart to start using it is to calibrate. And so whether you're a channel or you've just experienced an ayahuasca ceremony or some kind of really intense thing, it's a beautiful, beautiful tool for doing what you said, which is helping to translate very high frequency vibrations into a physicality, which will then sort of allow us to embody and anchor in all of this incredible consciousness that is literally flooding onto the planet in a way that is comfortable for the physical body. Because I know we're all about like, whoa, bring it on. And then when we bring it on and it's uncomfortable, it's like, oh, what do I do with this? So, like you said, you've discovered, and I honor that too, that you've discovered that light language is your go to tool for helping basically like, I call it like transduce in a way, like with electricity, like you're literally taking one form of something and you're making it into another form that's more digestible. So that's how I see it.
So beautiful. And I know you have a deep connection with the Divine Mothers, and I feel like they have been coming into my awareness this year, like Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Kuan Yin, and all the beautiful, Sophia dragons, etc. And so I'm curious for anyone who is maybe at this step where there are light language is starting to come through for them in, ceremonies or rituals, and they're not really sure like where it's coming from. How can someone, I guess, use discernment that they are connecting to like source energy, God consciousness, as well as how to like utilize it for themselves?
Yeah, I get asked this all the time because I am a multi-dimensional channel. And so when you're dealing with all dimensions, it's like, how do you pick and choose or how does that work? So the main framework that I operate from now, and I've evolved into is one of full unity consciousness and just like almost a 0 point neutrality where everything is source in the end. And so I know that sounds really kind of counterintuitive because you're like, does that mean you channel anything? I'm like, not really, but it makes it so that I don't do anything out of fear. And when I'm vibrating out of duality, there's no fear. Everything is love, everything is source. My frequency only allows in what is vibrating at the same, basically rate. And that is just an automatic sort of way to filter. So I don't even consciously think of it anymore because I operate from that framework. But it did take practice sometimes. But light language is so intuitive. It's like as long as you're tapping into your heart, setting your intention that you're connecting with your sacred heart. When you step into it, I just feel like it's so different even than channeling in English because it's so heart-centered and it's soul-centered in that way. You're not having to take it through the logical mind to produce it. So I would say trust your heart, trust your feeling, your heart. And sometimes the knowing wants to step in, but I find if you kind of let it take a back seat, it tends to work better. And all of those beautiful divine feminine divine mother frequencies that you're talking about that are coming through right now that people are having come in like ceremony things, I want to remind you that most likely what you are channeling, what you are speaking is connected to other lifetimes that you have lived as potentially like a priestess or, a wise woman or a healer or a shaman of some kind. And you're honestly not really even accessing anything too far from your own soul. You're actually just pulling from the threads of your own soul and you're channeling these parts of you that maybe you just weren't aware were there. That's how I see it.
I absolutely love that because when I went into the Akashic Records, like in the very beginning, the first 6 or 8 months, I did a lot of past life healings and activations. And it was it came to my awareness that right now, if you feel or you perceive the world as like it's just you in this time and space, it feels very limiting. And so when I opened myself up to
Yeah.
all the past lives, which are parallel lives, I was like, wait, I can access gifts that I used in different lives and have them support me here in this lifetime. And when I like came to that realization, I was like, whoa, this is amazing. This is magical. I want to like unlock all the gifts. And it's this like sense of trust too, right? Like to kind of say like I am worthy of that gift, and I am enough because like I'm sure what I'm doing now is completely different when I was like I don't know, like a witch or an apothecary, holder or herbalist, and all those things. And so in terms of being a channel and a multidimensional channel and like using these gifts, etc. Someone's like, well, how do I like bring those gifts here, right? They might be thinking that. And for me, it's kind of like what you said about being a code keeper. It's kind of what I'm relating this to is like you're
Mhm.
bringing this certain frequency or energy of a different aspect of you into your physical manifestation or aspect of who you are and being able to utilize that for your life. I guess how would you describe it as like someone who like what does a code keeper mean? And I feel like that relates to how they're like insourcing their gifts.
Sure. Code keeper. I feel like this is a deepening into like another level of what wants to come through in the field right now. So I kind of feel like I want to pause there because it feels like there's some information that wants to flow into the audience through their own clairs, not just through the words that I'm speaking and the words that you're speaking. I like to kind of actually demonstrate using light language to calibrate. So as we're stepping into this field of code keeping, I want to just set up and calibrate with a little transmission if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. I just set the intention that this transmission coming from my soul to your soul is designed to assist you in remembrance of any lifetimes or gifts you have related to code keeping that would serve Gaia and the collective now. So, Kuroko yana ia tsisda. Uruya para inala ia shutoko yana karaya. Kiara kati sini ni ya hoya. Ia tui oianae oia. So immediately the Lemurian Star Mothers came forward. So I feel like a lot of people listening to this are connected to the Lemurian Star Mothers and Lemuria. What was funny was while I was doing that transmission, I know you probably do this too. Sometimes you're channeling, but you're also receiving like at the same time. You're like, oh, they're having a conversation while I'm channeling. They were like, we don't really love the word code keeper. We want to call you like a songline keeper. But they were basically saying like you could see it as codes. That's very masculine. So if that resonates to see it as codes, the way they see it is like frequency keeper and also song lines. The Lemurians really talk in the language of song and melody, which is funny because at the beginning, when I was explaining what light language is, I was bringing in the analogy of music. So there's definitely something that wants to come through for this specific audience around the songs of your heart and the specific unique songs that you bring to Gaia, and also accessing these song lines and these key codes um, that you're a conduit for um, from other threads from parallel lifetimes that are ready to be woven into this physicality so that you can be a conduit for that combination of threads to weave into the greater tapestry of Gaia at this time.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I just got like every time it's like I know it's supportive, I get like full body, like kind of goosebumps.
Yes.
And I
Confirmation.
love when I first accessed the Akashic records, I would get some like DNA transmissions or activations. And it was so interesting because my logical mind was like, what, in the beginning, like, what is this? This isn't doing anything for me. What is this? Like they're pulling out my DNA and putting this new energy and like it didn't make sense, right? But I was like surrendering to these like quote unquote codes, like you said, right? Or whatever Akashic medium energy that was coming through. And it's really interesting because I started this journey very, very recently, like 2020, late 2021. I opened, Reiki, and then late 2022, I opened the Akashic Records. So now I'm teaching it in 2025. And so for me, like, it's hard to say because on the journey happened so quickly, but I opened myself up to these past life healings, these past life activations, these DNA activations, these light code transmissions, right? So oftentimes it's like, well, what did you do? I'm like, well, I believed in myself. I continued to walking forward, but at the same time, there's all this energetic, subconscious, you know, uh, support that I did in alignment with these like human 3D aligned steps. And I think interweaving the seen and the unseen world to help support my spiritual development journey, as well as like my spiritual entrepreneur business and all those things, is so powerful. So anyone who feels, maybe attracted or resonant with, the light language you just spoke or any light language, I would definitely invite them forward to connect more deeper, because you can use it, for so much, for expansion, for healing, and all those beautiful things. And it's interesting because when I first found you or got introduced to you, or you came into my conscious awareness, I had just decided, I chose and I walked into my journey of being a grid worker. And this is, I know, a big part of your journey. And I've been to a couple of your grid worker activations. They've been so powerful. And so I know my listeners have my definition of grid worker, which is like bringing more light into this like crystalline grid, into this earthly plane, to help support the evolution of consciousness on Earth and the new Earth, and in the people, the light workers who are meant to be activated. And so I'm curious if there's any insight, because you call yourself a planetary grid weaver and you do a lot of grid work in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's a great. That's a whole other ball of wax, and I'm excited to dive into it. And geez, as you're saying that, I'm in a moment right now. Okay, I'm gonna be super vulnerable with all of you guys. I'm in a moment right now of huge shift and transformation. So whenever you're listening to this, at the time we're recording it, I just barely, like honestly, 12 days ago, birthed a new iteration of what used to be like my membership community. And what it was called before was Starseed Community, which was very centered on grid work. I actually originally had grid work in it, but I won't go through the whole, yeah, how it all worked. So what I've transitioned into is a name that is very accurately representing kind of what you're talking about, which is Light Weavers Global. And in literally, if you think of planetary grid, we're weaver, light weavers global, the word weaving is coming forward because I don't know. I think my inner child didn't like the word work. I'm not sure. I don't know if any of our inner children are loving the word work. We're just like, can we not have to work anymore? Isn't the new word just like ease and flow and abundance of like, yes, but like creativity. And we're obviously not productive, but just that word, just that word. So weaving is exactly what you said. I love the definition you gave of just like bringing light into the energy body of Gaia. Okay. So everybody knows chakras, meridians, if you're listening to this podcast, you know about that stuff. It's essentially that same energy structure that you're working with, but for Gaia. So what I find is that a lot of people will start out as body workers and light workers doing Reiki or, Akashic records or, emotion code or different modalities working with the energy of the bodies or working with the remembrance. And then when you work with an individual, you start stepping into and start understanding how like as above, so below, and as below, so above. So as with one individual human being, Gaia also has that same sort of trajectory and soul purpose and what she's doing with her energy body and how we can help and weave with her because we're all together one giant body of a giant planetary collective that is ascending in frequency. We are in a time of quantum leap. We are in a time of great shift. It's been talked about for a long time, but let me just tell you, it is not a long time in the grand scheme of things that we've been doing this. So when we say like people have been saying this forever, I'm like, I get it, but it's not going to happen in 25 years. Like, it's not going to happen in 25 years. So we're still leaning into it. We are quantum leaping every day. I mean, right now, when I'm recording this with you, we are in, we're kind of still in the eclipse portal for September 2025. There is so much timeline collapsing going on right now that I don't think people are keeping up with it. Like, consciously, we're not even capable of keeping up with it, but we're feeling sort of wonky about it. And when it comes to work like yours with the Akashic records, we're like merging records. And when you said at the beginning that you use light language to compress, think about that just for a moment, because as an Akashic records, keeper, a guardian like you do, guide, that's important for you to know how to do, because you're doing it for yourself. But honestly, sometimes you're probably doing it for the client, where you're compressing that information like a zipped folder on a computer so that you can help them anchor that in. And right now we're doing that with timelines, which are essentially, it's data in the Akashic records. There's a huge data convergence happening right now. And we are doing that on an individual level. And to go back to this idea of Gaia and grid work, Gaia is also doing the same thing. Gaia is also doing the same thing. So there are places we visit as grid workers where we're feeling that sense of convergence and that sense of basically transmuting a lot of timelines into light. So the more we can infuse those areas, that it's like a vortex of energies happening there, because there's all of the timelines collapsing for a specific area and a specific energy node of Gaia. We're infusing that with light to facilitate that process and make it as comfortable as possible for her. When it's comfortable for her, it is more comfortable for us. So that's how I see it.
I love that. That is so beautiful, and that makes so much sense as, like, the earth created us. We are part of earth, and so to help support her primarily, and having it kind of be like a not a repercussion, but the benefit of supporting her is so beautiful. And when you talk about timelines collapsing, I haven't really talked about, I think, timelines on this podcast a lot. And my perception of that is it's like you're shedding away the layers or the timelines that are no longer of your highest good with your intentionality, with your work. And so what would your definition be of like these timelines that are collapsing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely one framework. And if that resonates for people, I say use that, like shedding away. I see it more like basically bringing everything into 0 point, neutralizing it so that you're refining that energy. But it's the same idea. It's the same idea. Anything that's not serving you anymore is either released, see it that way, or transmuted and called into the highest possible frequency for you. I mean, I tell people to watch Loki all the time.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that
Yeah, I
Marvel
love
show.
that.
I tell people to watch Loki. Because it's talking about, well, it's talking about pruning. It's not in the most positive way, but the way I see it is that you are calling in the potential timeline energy from any timelines that are you're not wanting to explore in anymore. Any part of you is wanting to explore because you're like, wait a minute, yeah, you have parallel versions of yourself. Right now, right now is so related to what you said, because a lot of times we'll be like, oh, it's a timeline where I was on the Pleiades or whatever. Right now, we're actually in a moment of intense convergence of timelines that are super, like 1 degree away from the timeline we're in now. So super close parallel lives on Earth, which gets intense because a lot of people are feeling emotional ups and downs. And my theory is, as we're converging with those timelines, little specks of those versions of us are coming in to be reunited with us. And we are getting little twinges of like, I thought I figured that out. I thought I got done with that. I thought I closed that loop. And because these parallel lives are coming in, you might get like a little tiny reactivation of something you thought you figured out. But I tell people, like, don't panic. We're not in a loop anymore. We're just converging with these timelines. So you have to surrender and just allow for this to happen. And as you do, it's kind of what you said. You're basically calling that energy back in. You're revitalizing your energy for this main master timeline of the highest outcome. So, and that's how I see it for the most part.
That's so beautiful, and thank you for explaining that so beautifully. And In terms of the Akashic records, I usually see timelines within the records. That's where that's my personal modality of like viewing
Yeah.
it from that perspective. But it's really interesting because recently, just within the last week or two, I feel like this is really relatable. I've been feeling called to like earthly records and coming into the records from Mother
Ah.
Earth. And so, and seeing it from that point of view and accessing it from that source. And so I was like, something definitely that I'm wanting to explore a little bit more and connect more as a grid worker myself to see what Mother Earth needs and whatever is going on.
I have to jump in and share something with you then. I'm like, I think this is specifically for you and anybody who's a record keeper, because you hold that template, I would say, as yeah. It's two. I love synchronicity. I love confirmation. It's always there. So just yesterday, we have a specific call as part of our membership, this Light Weavers Global, where my husband Michael goes out and about in the world, anywhere. This just happened to be Los Angeles yesterday. And I'm anchoring, and sometimes I'm with him. And so he's on the call. He's literally in the field doing the grid work. And there's people from all over the world that join us as we're carrying out this grid work. The theme yesterday was the stones. So here in Los Angeles, there's a place called the Vasquez Rocks. They're kind of north of Los Angeles, and they're very unique looking, incredible rocks. Like you think Joshua Tree, Sedona, these rocks. And I kid you not, like what you're talking about, I can hear like all of the whoever, like Gaia jumping up and down, because here's what wants to be shared with you and anybody carrying the same templates you are. We're reconnecting the memory vaults of Gaia that are stone, giant stone. So what we did in the call was he was at those rocks. We've been to Avebury this year. We are going to Castle Hill, New Zealand. Now, if you look up those places, they're giant stones. We were just in Egypt. And beyond the temples, we went to this incredible site where there are just giant stones. This is actually a quarry where they quarry this. So these are all record keepers. They were all communicating with us, and we were beginning to weave them together and bridge them. So we were calling in like Iceland, basalt columns. We were calling in all the stones. So I think what I'm saying is this calling that you're having can be amplified if you physically connect to stones, and particularly large, large stones are going to be even more beneficial. And most people, if you guys look this up in your locations, you will see, you'll probably be surprised you didn't know it was there. You will see these places. You will see these little places tucked away, and they're all vaults. So what's happening, just to go one step further really quick, is we are connecting these vaults back together, and all of them are being activated into their crystalline architecture so that we can activate those highest timelines that are dormant but embedded in those particular records. So I believe that might be why you're also called to work with Gaia. I am done.
I love that so much. Oh my goodness. I haven't actually heard of Vasquez Rock, so I'm gonna look that up. I was just in the San Gabriel Forest yesterday, so and I was just feeling like
Oh,
so
yeah.
connected. So I'm feeling it's
Oh,
probably up there. But I love what you're describing because these like vaults of like what you're seeing. I kind of how I see it is like it's like they're like before maybe it's like not connected to like the grid maybe I'm working with, the crystalline grid. And then when I come and I connect and I bring like the elemental dragon energy and the divine mothers and the archangels and like we kind of like grid it kind of becomes like I see it become accepted kind of into like the fabric of existence of
yes.
like the crystalline grid. And then it becomes like supportive as like I support bringing more light, and then it provides more messages, or like we're able to tap into it in a way that is more connected and profound.
Yeah, yeah. It's just about that they were dormant due to the frequency of the consciousness of humanity. So they just like fell asleep, and we're just waking up all these hot spots, all these vaults. Yeah.
I listened to a podcast episode. It was this girl like Annie, I think, and she went to one of your I feel like it was an Avery. It was
Yes.
Avery. And
I immediately know who you're talking about.
I
Yeah.
had never listened to her podcast before, but then she told us about she talks about her whole experience there and connecting to the land and getting all the messages. And she was like specifically, I think, Arcturian or Andromedan, I forget, but just like
Yeah.
anchoring in those energies to support Earth, like like part of her soul family connecting here and using those energies to help, like you said, awaken and, progress, help consciousness as we are all awakening.
Yes, yes, that was an incredible experience. So I work with galactic historians. So one of the calls that I've gotten, which is very tied to what you do, um, the call that I got earlier this year, it just popped in like out of nowhere. It was a template I was asked to kind of anchor in, and it's become a three-part situation, but virtual and in person, is Galactic Historians, which is literally a convergence of, and I call it a conference, but I say it's a conference slash convergence. So I've had two, and I'm about to have one more in Australia and New Zealand. And it's super, super tied to what you are saying, but it's also just very connected to one thread of my soul purpose. And I highly encourage anybody listening to you, speaking of just everything that we're talking about with code keepers and song keepers and frequency. I mean, we're flooding information into this field right now. So for those of you who are like, what's going on? Just take a deep breath. Let me tell you like a big picture thing that's really important for you. The reason why you're seeing me bring forward what I'm bringing forward today, this information, and Dani bring through what she brings through with such passion is because we have arrived at a place where we can fully well, for the most part, I'm sure there's more, but really confidently understand and trust the templates that we're holding. So the message that keeps coming through over and over again is to encourage people to seek out the tools they need to understand and anchor in the templates that are unique to them, not JJ's templates, not Dani's templates, but the templates that are unique to them. So that's just something that wants to come forward.
A lot of my clients are searching for their purpose. And one of those things of searching is like, I need to have it now. And I need to know what it is now. And I want to hear your feedback on this. But for me personally, what I've come to realize is I can't possibly know what it is until I pass away. And at that moment is where I will fully embody the highest expression of that purpose. And what I've intentionally done now is like what I'm doing now, I'm going to choose to do something that fulfills me in this moment and makes me joyful and happy and connected. And me living that out fully as my most expressed self is my purpose now. And that might be different in 6 months or a year or 5 years. And it absolutely will, because I am continuing to grow and change and connect more deeper with, different energies and versions of myself. And so that's definitely my advice for purpose. But in terms of all this beautiful work that you do, what would you say, and I don't want to limit you as well, but what would you describe your ongoing purpose as being in someone who is trying to find theirs?
Oh gosh, you know what's dropping in is so funny for this particular group, because you know how it is when you feel an audience, you feel the energy, you feel that, like, whatever podcast I'm on or whatever, like I can tell the higher selves of everybody who will be listening is like, say this, um, keep it simple, sweetie, kiss. Have you ever heard that? So it's KISS, right?
I love that.
So it's an acronym. So it's like, keep it simple, sweetie. What I'm hearing is boil it down to the like pure. That's why I call it light weavers global. It's like, what do you do? We weave light. What do you do? We weave light. It's like, bleh. That's it. That's it. Like, that's it. That's it. And so I think sometimes we overcomplicate what is my soul purpose. What if you just release the need to make it complex? And, I would say 99% of the people listening to this can relate to the idea of weaving light in some way, shape, or form onto the planet. So I'm like, what if you just zoomed way out and said, I'm here to weave light? Well, what does that look like? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to look like? Stop asking what the purpose is, because I think it's different. Like, I think you ask what the purpose is, but I think you literally want the instruction manual when you forget you're here to create your own instruction manual. So it's like, I think they know their purpose. I think that's because I get that question all the time, Dani. I get this same question all the time. And it occurred to me after a while, I was like, you're here to anchor light. This is why we came. This is why we heard the call. We came to Gaia. Okay. That's number one, all of us. If you're if you're in my timeline and you're interfacing with me or receiving any of my content or in this, we're here to weave light, guys. We're here to anchor light. Number two, it's like, what does that mean? What does that look like? What do you want it to be? Because not only are we here to weave light, but we're here to remind everybody and anybody that we can't possibly remind that we are creators of our own reality. So we don't need to outsource the instruction manual for how we do it. We can actually just begin to create it ourselves. That's how I, that's my take.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. We are the creators of our own reality, and once you choose or you step into that space of choosing that, I think that's, like, where the magic happens, and I know in your community, you have, like, 200 of these light weavers that are weaving light, and I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So for my listeners, is there anything or that you're working on right now or any courses that, maybe my listeners can really benefit from?
Absolutely. I'd say first and foremost, I have a lot. I'm very multidimensional in all ways, even in the content that I'm creating. And, so it can get to be like, whoa. I would say to boil it down to the most simple, there is a course called Activate Your Spoken Light Language that I feel is very wonderful foundation. And another one called Gridwork 101. So connected to the topics we're talking about today, I'd say those two. But of course, I have a website with all the goodies, and I have podcast episodes and light language activations for free on my YouTube channel whenever. And there are hundreds of those that are accessible. It can hopefully support those who are listening on their journey.
So beautiful, and I'll link everything in the show notes, and if there's any last wisdom that wants to come through for anyone who is on their ascension journey and connecting to the part of them that is connected to these multidimensional energies, is there any advice that is coming through to support them along the way?
Yes, I actually feel a closing transmission coming from our beautiful star mothers. So I'd like to just offer that as we close out. So taking a deep breath, and if you'd like to receive, just opening your heart. Kimna yatokushiarak niaya. Ayasutu uruyanai kimabo uro. Kashtirarana ura hayata kiashata uriyata nyakiata. I am complete.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, JJ, for co creating this beautiful space and just downloading all your wisdom to give our listeners a taste of what can be and what is and all the beautiful things.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And until next time, bye.